What's up guys, this is John with Clang and Bang, and the question I have for you today is your battle rifle battle ready? It's pretty cheesy, wasn't it, with the whole swinging at the gun and the pointing the whatever. Cheesy intro aside, it's a pretty important topic. You know, everybody has their rifle, their go-to rifle, battle rifle, whatever they want to call it. But there's a few things about said rifle that we need to make sure is dialed in or squared away, if you want to call it. One of those things is the zero of your optic or your iron. Is your rifle zeroed? I know a lot of times, like instructors will tell you, or if you go to class, the beginning, like some of the beginner classes, we'll line up maybe 50 yards, however long, and we'll all confirm zero, which should mean you put some shots on paper, make sure you're somewhere close for your zero for the class. A lot of people, maybe not a lot, there's always a few in every class that lay down and their gun is hitting, you know, maybe not even on the paper, edge of the cardboard, wherever. It's not zeroed for crap. The point of it is to confirm zero. It's not to get a zero or zero your rifle. And I guess you could say, you know, if there's just no way you can get to a range to zero it, you don't live out in the country, you don't have access to this stuff, or there's no range that you can shoot a rifle 50 yards. Okay, I'll give you that one. Maybe you can email the instructor, or, you know, before you go to the class, email them, see if you can zero it, or, you know, if it's okay if it's not zeroed. But at any rate, your rifle should be zeroed. It shouldn't be, you know, close enough or good enough, or, you know, even some people call it, you know, combat zero, or whatever they, you know, whatever they call it. That sucker ought to be dialed in. If you're, you know, zeroing at 50 yards, your round should be hitting about like that, at least at 50 yards. I mean, your gun's not that inaccurate. Even the worst guns, ARs anyway, 4 MOA. So at 50 yards, you should be hitting 2 inches easy. So don't sell yourself short with, you know, a good enough zero. Get the thing dialed in. So that way, say if you keep it in your truck, your house, you know, a ranch, whatever, you got to pull that thing out and you got to hit something. You don't want it to be good enough. You want it to be right where you put that dot or that crosshair or that chevron or whatever you've got in your reticle, your optic. If you put it on the target and squeeze the trigger and you do your job, the round should hit exactly where you put that. All right, so another thing about zeros. Once you have your zero and you know it's there, do you understand your zero? You know, a lot of guns have red dots, like all my AR pistol, my SBR, they have red dots on them because they're shorter barrels. To me, you know, red dot is right at home on that size gun. They all have 50 yard zeros. If you have a 16-inch carbine with a red dot, to me, 50 yard zeros, good to go. That's what I had when I had a dot on this, 50 yard zero. Some people like 100. That's a whole different video on itself, debating on 50 to 100, 36, whatever zero you want. What I'm trying to say is, once you have your zero, understand it. What yard was it at? Was it 36? Was it 50? Was it 100? How is the bullet going to react once it goes past the zero? When is your bullet going to come back down? You know, these shorter zeros, less than 100, the bullet actually crosses once, goes up, comes back down, and crosses the second time. As far as I know, on a 100 yard zero, the bullet is, you're so far away 100 yards, the bullet touches once and then starts to go back down. I don't think it goes up and down like a 50 yard or a 36 yard zero. And so if you don't have a 100 yard zero, you need to know the first time the bullet passes your line of sight, zero. The second time it passes. The others, the 50, 200, you know, 50/200, that's what that means. 50 is the first time it crosses, 200 is the second time as the bullet's coming down, it crosses the line of sight again. A 36 yard zero, I don't do that. I think it's like 300 yards, somewhere around there. Meters, I don't know, Marines are weird about their yardage and their marksmanship skills and stuff like that. So just make sure you understand the ballistics of your zero and your gun. You know, a shorter barrel, 10.5, 11.5, they're gonna have different trajectory downrange than a 16-inch. The bullet's just moving slower. So that second time it crosses is probably gonna be like 175. It's not quite gonna be 200 or 225. It's probably gonna be more like 175. So that's just something you need to know. You can't really call it a battle rifle or your battle go-to rifle if you don't know how to use it to its full extent. All right, since we're talking about red dots and optics, if it has a battery, are your batteries up to date? Are they still working? Is it an optic that you have to turn on? Is it one that you can leave on? How long can you leave it on? It's all stuff we gotta think about. A lot of my red dots, I like to buy red dots that have 5-year, 50,000 mile warranty, whatever battery life. Whether it's aim point, you know, some of the advanced, primary arms, Holosun, whichever one you're gonna go with, just get the one that has the long battery life. I mean, yeah, it says 5 years, that's probably at the minimum setting, you know, which is not bright enough to do anything with. It's probably gonna be in a medium to 3/4 setting to make it bright enough. So it's not gonna last 5 years, it's probably gonna last a year. What I do, my wife and my birthday and my wife's birthday are 5 and 7 months apart. You know, on either end makes 12 months. That's a year for you math wizards. It's 5 months apart and 7 months apart. On my birthday, all the red dot batteries get changed. On her birthday, all the red dot batteries get changed. So that way, none of the batteries last more than 7 months. Out of all the red dots and all that stuff I've got, I've never picked one up that was dead. You know, these optics stay on all the time. They stay on at a brightness that I know will work for whatever situation I'm in. And I change them, I make sure they're changed about 6 months, which is probably good for, you know, everybody, any optic. CR 2032, I think, little round batteries, they're a couple dollars. That's cheap insurance to make sure your dot is gonna work every time you pick that rifle up. And speaking of red dot settings, do you know what setting your red dot is currently at if it is on all the time? And do you know what setting it needs to be at to be bright enough for your flashlight? Like this light right here, 1500 lumen light. If you shine it on a wall, it's gonna be pretty bright. Is your dot set up bright enough to where it will show up with the light? If you have to go outside with it, is it bright enough where you can see it outside? You know, most of the time our guns are inside. They're made for inside stuff. Home defense is probably what most of us use our guns for or have them for. So make sure, yeah, if you look at it at night, you can put it on like 2 and you'll be able to see it. You flick a light switch on, is it still bright enough? You hit your Master Blaster 9000 lumen light through the house, is your dot still going to be bright enough? So the best thing to do, cut the lights off, shine your light on the wall, make sure you can see the dot, or flip all the lights on, see if you can see the dot. It's that simple. All right, so another thing, probably the second most important thing besides the actual rifle or pistol is the ammo that you shoot out of it. Does the ammo function in your gun? Have you shot enough rounds of that ammo to make sure it cycles, to make sure it functions right, to make sure it ejects all the time, feeds all the time? And is your rifle zeroed for that ammo? Whatever ammo you keep in there for your go-to, it should be zeroed for that. Don't zero it with 55 grain 223 steel case and then slap some 75 or 77 grain soft points or open tip matches in there. It's not going to shoot the same. It's a lot heavier bullet. So whatever you got in it, like this rifle is zeroed for XM193. This is my battle rifle, my outdoor zombie end of rule of law world, whatever you want to call it. This is it. It's got a 1-6. It's kind of a recce style short to mid-range rifle. It's got XM193 in it. Why doesn't it have 77 grain open tip match? Because that crap's really expensive and 55 grain's a lot cheaper. It flies super fast. It shoots 1.5 inches out of this rifle at 100 yards with this optic. So to me, that's pretty good. And I've got tons of it. I can get tons of it. And I can maintain buying tons of it. So this rifle zeroed for XM193. That's what's in the magazine, XM193. If crap goes south, I gotta throw on a plate carrier or chest rig or whatever, and this thing comes out, all the mags, XM193. My short guns, like my pistol, my SBR, the 10-inch guns, they've got 55 grain gold dots, soft point. Why don't they have XM193? Well, I wish they could, because that'd be a lot cheaper and it'd be a lot easier just for everything to have the same ammo. The reason it doesn't is because XM193 is very dependent on muzzle velocity to do its damage, to yaw, flip, fragment, whatever you want to call it. It has to have a certain muzzle velocity, and out of a 10.5-inch rifle or pistol barrel, it loses a lot of velocity. So you lose the range that the bullet is above that threshold of being effective. Knowing that, I put soft points in there, 55 grain gold dot. You can use 75, 77, 60, whatever grain you want. All the gold dots, in my opinion, are good to go. They maintain their weight through barriers. They're very barrier blind from what I've seen, what I've read or studied. So they maintain their weight and their effectiveness through glass, through sheetrock, all that stuff, and they get the job done, no matter what weight you're using. I chose the 55s just so they would go a little faster, especially out of those shorter barrels. I know a lot of people use 75 grains out of the short barrels. You know, I'm not a ballistics mathematician or expert, so I just use the 55s. So we've got our ammo picked out. We've got our rifle zeroed to that ammo. Is the ammo accurate? You know, how accurate is it? If it shoots 2 MOA and that's the ammo you can get, or that's the ammo you want to use, and it shoots 2 or 3 MOA, just keep that in mind. That way you know the effectiveness, you know the range of it. You're not going to try a 600-yard shot because you know the group's going to be that big and you might not be that great a shot with it. So know how accurate it is out of the particular gun that you're shooting it out of. And along with that, talked about range. Know the effective range of your gun, your optic, and your ammo. My short guns have 10.5-inch barrels and red dots. So to me, that's kind of like a 0 to 100, maybe 150-yard gun. Yeah, it'll plink steel, it'll make noise at 300 yards, but I mean, beside the legality of it, 300-yard shot with a 10.5-inch is just not going to be as effective as, say, with a 16-inch with a 6-power scope on it. So the effective range for this gun is a good bit longer than my effective range on my short guns. Alright, so that's some of the important stuff about making sure your go-to rifle or your battle rifle is squared away or set up. You know, make sure the ammo works in the gun. Make sure your optic is set up and squared away. Make sure it's zeroed and has batteries. This has an etched reticle. It doesn't even have to have a battery. It has one, hardly ever use it, but it has an etched reticle, so I don't have to turn anything on to use it. Maybe if it's dark I do, but for the most part I don't have to do anything. I do have a throw lever so I can go back and forth really fast from 1 to 6, but you know, that's the important things on your battle rifle. You need to make sure you got squared away. Some of the secondary stuff like lights and slings are they're important parts of a go-to home defense whatever rifle. You need to have a sling, need to have a light on it, but you know, that might be a topic for a different video. This video is talking about making sure if you pull this gun out, you can hit what you're aiming at, you know how far you can hit something you're aiming at, and you know how effective it's going to be when it hits what you're aiming at.